Steve Young is arguably the most famous Young in the BYU sports world, but now we have some competition from a distant cousin, as it turns out, who in April was named as the 19th head coach in BYU men's basketball history. And tonight, he's at the helm on his first weekly show here in Studio C. Please help me welcome in Kevin Young. Coach Young, good to see you. Welcome back. All right. You were with us with Kalani a few weeks back, so you got a feel for the studio.
Yeah. No, it was good being in here with him. You know, he's showing me the ropes in many ways. So.
We wish those guys the best as they await their bowl destination. We'll get a good one here on Sunday.
Yeah, no, excited, man. It's been a blast following those guys all year, and wish them well here in this last one.
As this is your first real show, it's going to be a bit of a get to know you as we learn more about your background. And with this BYU head coaching job, you're actually back in the state in which you were born.
That's true. Yeah, funny you mentioned that. I was with my son earlier today, and he didn't believe me that I was born in Utah, so we had to call Grammy, my mom, to clarify that. But yeah, I was born here, left the state when I was 1, but I have a lot of family ties to the state, and yeah, man, it's full circle. And
when you left as an infant, Texas was the first stop.
Yep. So I was in Dallas till I was 13. With a pit stop in Michigan for 1 year, but we came back to Dallas and then moved to Atlanta 13 years after we got to Dallas.
I was born in Sudbury, Ontario at 1, moved to Saskatoon at 13, made my move to Calgary with the family, so a similar path, different countries. But yeah, it was the Atlanta area for you. That was the high school years, and where you kind of did most of your growing up then, I guess, after that.
Yeah, so I claim Atlanta as home. Had a great, upbringing there. Had an unbelievable high school coach that ultimately kind of led me down this career path, but went to college out there as well, and then worked as a professional for a year, and then made my way out west and kind of been everywhere in between since then.
So as a kid, going into teenager, when did you gravitate to basketball?
I think kind of ever since I can remember, honestly, but when I got real serious about it was probably 5th grade. I remember that being like my first big travel tournament and that kind of thing, and that's probably my first memory of it, just getting kind of serious.
Were you a point guard?
I was.
Always a point guard? Kind of, that was the mentality, or?
Yeah, always a point guard. I mean, in college, I kind of played on and off the ball a little bit as we had different iterations of guys coming in. But yeah, man, was always a point guard. Always kind of tried to get us organized and kind of be an extension of the coach on the floor.
High school ball, Marietta?
Yep.
And then you go JUCO, and then small college ball, Division II at Clayton State. Where'd you play the JUCO, first of all?
Middle Georgia College, which is named appropriately. It's in the middle of nowhere. And did that for 2 years, and then, as you said, transferred up to Clayton State, which was closer to my hometown.
The Lakers out of the Peach Belt Conference.
Yep.
And one of the competitors of Clayton State back in the day, they're Division I now, but Kennesaw State was in Division II and in your league at the time. And we were familiar with Kennesaw State because when Tony Ingle left BYU, he went to be the head coach at Kennesaw State, and you played against him.
I did, yeah. No, the Ingle entire family, great family, great basketball family. Yeah, Tony was a fierce competitor. We had some unbelievable battles against those guys. They went on to win the national championship my junior year. We had a pretty, the most exciting, boring game in the conference finals against those guys because it was just a defensive brawl.
43-39 was the final.
You've done your research, yeah. Most exciting.
How does that happen, 43-39?
Just an absolute bloodbath of a game. A lot of defense. Both coaches very defensive-minded. But no, the Ingle family is great. Several of them are high school coaches out here. I'll see one of them tomorrow, actually. But yeah, great family.
And then you finished playing, and you were almost right into the game quickly as a coach. Did you know, leaving it as a college player, that was something you wanted to do?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I mentioned my high school coach, Roger Quam. He's I'd still talk to him frequently. He was an unbelievable influence on me. I thought he had the greatest life. He had 5 kids, awesome wife, coached hoops, and just seemed like life was good. And I was like, I want to do that. And so initially wanted to be a high school coach, and that's kind of the path I thought I was on. And then when I got to college, thought maybe college was the move in terms of coaching, and then a lot of different things happened between then and now.
I'm going to list off your coaching jobs, and perhaps you could share just a few thoughts or maybe even a key word or a key memory from each stop that I take you through. The first one, you have to tell us where it is, Oxford College. This is not the Oxford in England we're talking
about.
This
is not the one in England. No, so this is a feeder school at Emory University in Atlanta. It's in Oxford, Georgia, which is right outside of Covington, which is on the east side of Atlanta, kind of out in the sticks a little bit. Oh man, probably my biggest memory there was just my roommate was a great friend of mine. I just saw him after about 13 years. He came to visit out here. He was a high school coach as well. We went to church together, lived together. Great guy. We had some really good friendship that we formed during that time.
That was 2004-05. Then the next year, you're in Utah yep. Valley State College. It wasn't UVU yet. That was still a year or two away, but you were at UVSC.
Yeah, it was at UVSC. That was kind of my first just foray into, just a bigger brand of basketball. They were making the transition to Division I. Probably the highlight of that year was we went down to Arizona State and beat those guys at Arizona State. And as things fast forward, the starting point guard on that team was Kevin Kruger, who's now the head coach at UNLV, who ended up being my starting point guard when I later got a head coaching job. So I always rubbed it in his face that Utah Valley went down and beat ASU at their place.
Kevin, son of Lon?
Yes.
Yes, indeed. And by the way, UVSC was with Dick Hunsaker, right?
Yeah, so Coach Hunsaker's great. He's been down to several of our practices. Just shot me a note the other day giving me his kind of inside take on our team early here.
That's awesome. So we said that the Oxford wasn't the one in England, but you did make it to the UK. Shamrock Rovers. You were the head coach of the Shamrock Rovers in?
Dublin, Ireland.
Dublin, Ireland.
Yeah, so that was my first head coaching job. I was 2 years out of school. Coach Hunsaker actually helped me kind of sort of navigate that. That was probably the best thing that ever happened to me as a young coach, just trying to figure it out. Man, I was 2 years out of school. I didn't really know what I was doing. Called a buddy of mine who was my college teammate and asked him if he wanted to come be my point guard. So him and I sort of did that together, and just a great experience.
Okay, Ireland not part of the UK, by the way, but near enough to the UK.
Say, those are fighting words.
Yeah, no, Northern Ireland, you're all right.
Yeah.
Ireland, not the UK. Okay, and then you're back stateside, and you're back in Utah.
Yeah.
With the Utah Flash as both an assistant and a head coach for 4 years.
Yep, so those seeds were planted before I left to Ireland. I met two guys, Joe Brown and Brain Anderson, both guys that have ties here. They said, hey, we're going to start this NBA D-League team in Utah, and I was like, I didn't believe them, but I said, if you do, give me a buzz. I'm about to go overseas and be a head coach. And sure enough, they did. Came back and worked my way up, kind of did literally every job with that organization, ended up being a head coach, and that was a lot of fun. From
the Utah Flash, the Iowa Energy, head coach.
Yep, so we played the Iowa Energy in the playoffs the year I was with the Flash. Nick Nurse was the head coach of the Energy. We had a real knockout, drag-out series. They ended up beating us and went on to win the title that year. Flash ended up getting sold. I was out of a job. Nick bounced to the NBA. Iowa hired me to come be their head coach.
Then to Delaware, the 87ers who were affiliated with the 76ers, and you were both an assistant and head coach in Delaware.
Yep, so that was the biggest memory there was just our first son. He was like about 4 or 5 months old when we moved to Delaware as young new parents and trying to figure that whole thing out and living in a new place, and just a lot of memories, both good and bad, out there during that time. But that was my big break. Ultimately, although it took several years of my eventual path to the NBA. Because the next job you got was with the big club from Delaware, and that was the 76ers, an assistant for 4 seasons. Yep, so my first year in Delaware with Brett Brown, and Sam Hinkie were the guys running the 76ers. And then Brett Brown, who's Greg Popovich's right-hand man, even now, he's back in San Antonio as their lead assistant. He was the head coach for the Sixers and gave me an opportunity, and that was, one of the most fun times I've ever had in coaching. And from the Sixers to the Suns as both an assistant and associate head coach. Yep, so Monty Williams was an assistant with me with the 76ers, and he got the Suns job. I stayed in Philly for a year, and then he called me the next year and offered me a job out there, and eventually just kind of kept climbing the ladder there, and just great memories, man. I had a great run on the pro side, just worked with a lot of unbelievable people, both players, coaches, GM, front office people, and just a lot of really good relationships.
Okay, you don't look old enough to have done all of that, by the way.
That's a long list, man. But that's kind of how coaching is, man. There's really no straight path. It's just a lot of opportunity, and just trying to make the most of it. And that leads you to Delaware, to Iowa, to Ireland, to Phoenix, and all around the globe. And it was fun, and it's ironic that it all brought me and my wife and our kids back here to Utah.
Because as an associate head coach in the NBA, you were exploring NBA head jobs, and that was seemingly the next step. And we all know about how that next step was kind of circumvented, and you made it to here. Now that you've settled into this new life, do you feel like it is everything you hoped or thought it would be when you felt those kind of confirmations of this?
Yeah, I mean, it's been, there's been a lot of pits in my stomach, days I wake up not super comfortable yet, and just not knowing exactly, the NBA, I was on autopilot, to be honest with you. It's just, year after year, you just know what to expect. This is different. I'm getting a lot more comfortable. I got an amazing staff that kind of has helped me with that. And then on the personal side, yeah, man, we've had a lot of really neat experiences as a family, just kind of confirming like this is the place we need to be right now. And it's been pretty obvious.
Well, now that we've introduced you all to the head man, let's go through his roster and get the coach's perspective on his players. Here now we're going to introduce to you in numerical order, starting with starters, BYU's players this year. And these players' highlights and stats are presented by Intermountain Health, the official medical provider of BYU Athletics. We'll start with the starting five, and we're going to go numerically. We'll start with the lowest jersey number 3, Yegor Demian. The young Russian is averaging 13 points, 4.6 rebounds, 5.8 assists, and shooting just around 50% from the field right now.
Yeah, no, he's off to a good start. He's a unique talent because of his size and his passing and his ball handling, and he's learning a lot just like I am on the fly. That's what I love about him. He's constantly trying to get better. He never makes excuses. Extremely hard worker, and the guys really enjoy playing with him.
Is there a commonality among players to have a foreign upbringing to what they bring to the game here in America?
I mean, I think you see, the IQ. I've coached a lot of good European guys in the NBA, and just their brand of basketball is unselfish. They see the game more as a team concepts, and they get joy off of that side of it, I think, and that he clearly plays with that level of joy when he makes good passes, just as he does when he makes a good shot. So his IQ, along with many of his European counterparts, for sure, it's kind of what makes him unique.
Okay, to number 6, Cannon Catchings. Cannon is a true freshman, and he's averaging 10.5 points and 3.9 rebounds per game. Has started every game for you.
Yeah, no, just beautiful kid, man. And he is a kid, right? You got that baby face. I mean, the sky's the absolute limit for him. He's just so talented, and so we just try to, put him in position to succeed, but also just kind of stay on him about, the things we want to see him be good at. And I think he's improved at an extremely rapid rate, and I just think by the time we get to the end of the season, I can only imagine where he's going to be, and then beyond that, his potential is through the roof.
Okay, starting wing, the Iron Man, Richie Saunders, number 15. Richie's averaging 13 points a game. He's shooting almost 50% from the field. Made the all-tournament team at the 2-game deal you had in San Diego.
Yeah, no, he's an absolute warrior. I mean, he's the lifeblood of our team. I've called him that. He's a guy who I think, Cannon and Yegor get a lot of attention on the kind of the NBA radar. I mean, having come from that league, I mean, he's a guy that can play in the NBA in my mind just because of his motor. And most guys I say this about him all the time, most guys that play like him can't shoot. I think what separates him is he's a knockdown shooter, and he has that motor, which is really unique.
Let's backtrack to number 13, Keba Keita, averaging 7 points and almost 10 rebounds per game, shooting about 60% from the field right now.
Yeah, I mean, what an unbelievable athlete. I think he's one of the most dynamic athletes, in the country, vertically, and then obviously his big, big strong body combined with that athleticism makes him really. I mean, that play's insane. The tip dunk off of a free throw, but he fits in really well, with how we play on both ends of the floor, and I think he's only going to continue to get better as well.
And finishing off the starting five, missed your first 4 games, Dallin Hall, point guard.
Yeah, no, Dallin's just a leader. That's what I love about him. He's constantly trying to figure out what he can do to help the team. He wants to win. He's just a team-first guy. I love that about him. And he kind of it was tough having games without him, and now we're trying to re-find ourselves with him and Yegor together, and then even Kaba missed some time when Dallin came back. So we're still very much a work in progress with him missing as much time as he did. But I think his trajectory is real positive.
We're going to run through a few bench guys, not everyone, but a few guys. And one hasn't seen a lot of time yet, but he was a great high school player here in Utah, two-time 6A Player of the Year with Corner Canyon. Brody Kozlowski is someone that was originally committed to USC, came back to BYU. What do you think about his future?
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy who does all the right things. You know, he rarely makes mistakes in practice. He's always in the right spot. You know, I'm on him constantly about, trying to get as many threes up as he can in practice just to really refine his stroke. I mean, he's a guy who's can be a knockdown shooter, and that's what we want him to be. And I've been really just impressed with his basketball IQ. Like I said, he's rarely in the wrong position, and I think he's a guy that's just going to continue to get more and more comfortable and get better out there.
Another European player for you, Mihailo Boskovic, averaging 4.9 points per game, has played in all 8 of your games, averaging around 14 minutes a game right now.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy we like for his versatility. You know, he can play he can play multiple positions. We can slide him over to the 5, as you see him block a shot there. He's a guy that gives us a different look. You know, with whether he's the 4, he's got great size. Whether he's the 5, he's skilled. He can pull other teams' bigs away from the basket. So, his versatility is something that we'll lean on.
Okay, now the savvy veteran, one of the older players in the game, Trevin Knell, comes back to BYU. Started 4 of the 8 games before Dallin got ready to go. He's in the top 10 in career-made threes. He's nearly in the top 20 for career games played at BYU. Great to have a guy like Trevin back with your first team.
No question. I mean, I love Trev. He's a super competitive guy. I think that gets overlooked because of how well he shoots it, but he's one of our most competitive guys, and just is a knockdown shooter. I mean, I love having a guy like that we can draw stuff up in timeouts for. He can come out and deliver and make big timely shots for us.
A UC Irvine transfer who was the spark off the bench in Providence a couple nights ago, Dawson Baker, led BYU with 16 the other night in Providence.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy that was highly touted before coming here, but was derailed with injuries. I honestly wasn't sure what to expect just because of the injuries. But he worked his way back into really good shape over the summer. And, when he's gotten minutes and gotten, shots, he's really been able to produce. But just as a playmaker as well, I mean, he gives us a different element as far as being able to make plays off the dribble.
How about Foose now? We'll finish with Fousseyni Traore, averaging 13 points and 7 rebounds a game in about 20 minutes a game. He's career top 40 at BYU in scoring, already top 5 in offensive rebounds. He's BYU's career field goal percentage leader, and he's shooting 67% this season.
Yeah, I mean, he's just steady. He's a real calming force for us out there. When the game kind of gets hectic, he's a guy we can give the ball to. Really in the low block, but also in that trail spot. Feel like good things are going to happen. Never gets sped up, plays at his own pace, and he's had he had the career night the other night where he had his career high. So he's somebody that we're relying on heavily.
Okay, we get into your first show, and you're already 8 games into the season here. Let's see what BYU's done to get off to a 6-2 start to this year. Again, the most recent game was played just 2 nights ago at Providence. Coug's second loss of the year, and you see those last 3 games, Coach. The caliber of competition really stepped up. You got a nice win against NC State. Ole Miss is a ranked team, and Providence just had a great night.
Yeah, start with the first one. The Ole Miss game, was proud of our effort, but we came up short. Learned a lot, though, honestly, in all 3 of those games. That game stings because we're up 4 with under 2 to go. We feel like we should have closed it out and even had a shot at the buzzer to win it. So that was disappointing. NC State loved the bounce back mentality. That was less than 24 hours later. Our guys put together a really good game plan, and the players went out and executed to perfection, quite frankly. So I was really happy with that response. And then, Providence, give them credit. They played a good game. They had a good game plan. They made shots, and I don't think that's a good reflection of who we are, but you got to give them credit. They played an extremely good basketball game.
Yeah, they were kind of lights out. All right, as we break, and it is our first break, this is our reminder that your day-to-day Cougar Sports play-by-play happens on BYU Sports Nation. Join Spencer and Jarom weekdays at noon Eastern on BYUtv and BYU Radio. When we come back, We'll get to know another new face in the Marriott Center, assistant coach John Linehan in his deep blue profile, coming up next when BYU Basketball with Kevin Young continues. Stay with us.